Welcome everyone. My name is Ben. I'm an admissions advisor here. We're going to get a chance to see one of the chef instructors here at Escoffier School of Culinary Arts demonstrate a chili lime grilled chicken with tatemada salsa. Hopefully I said that perfect. This will be a new experience for me too. After that, we're going to go through the culinary program in detail, discuss financial options, and assist with the enrollment process and moving forward. But first, I'd like to introduce everyone to our chef instructor, Chef Dan Bearss. And Chef Bearss, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about the chef instructor at Escoffier. He's been working here for quite some time. He helps aid online students in helping them navigate their culinary education as they go through the program. Now, before he came with us, he's actually been working in the industry for quite some time. He actually achieved his culinary associate's degree in culinary arts, has 10 years of experience, which includes breakfast, butchery, spanning the restaurant, hotels, cruise ship industries. That sounds like that was an awesome experience. But without further ado, Chef Dan Bearss.
Hello all. Thank you for making time out of your Saturday, getting up early, getting up later, and breaking from your routine to come and learn a little bit about food. I'm really excited to go through this. So today, our focus is going to be on grilling. That's the technique that we're using. Grilling is pretty common, right? It's the go-to, it's the traditional, most people know how to grill. What I want to focus on is indoor grilling, right? So I live in an area where I don't have a yard and I don't have a grill, but I love grilled food. I love that little bit of char and blistering that you're going to get on your protein or vegetables. So we're going to create a dish, a grilled chicken dish, talk about how to keep it nice and tender and juicy, as well as give a garnish, a pretty easy salsa that you can make on your own. So we're going to come over to the cutting board here. All right. So on this cutting board, so what you can see, what I do want to show is that this is kind of the area that I have to work with. So the kitchen that you are working in, you can work in small areas here. So what I have here is I have all of my ingredients nice and laid out. You can see I have my chicken marinating, which we will talk about. I have this grill pan, okay? So it is raised right here. It has these little raises like you would find on a grill. And this is going to help us create those char marks. Okay, a few different types of salsas. We're going to start with the salsa first and get that ready to go. So I have all of my ingredients, my Roma tomatoes, serrano pepper, and I have onion. And then I have my lime juice and cilantro, salt and pepper that we're going to add to it. But a salsa tatemada is going to be a roasted or charred salsa, okay? So the first thing that you want to do is get some nice even char marks and blistering on these items. That being said, this is pretty much a salsa fresca. A salsa fresca is where you would take all of these ingredients, your cilantro, lime juice, tomatoes, onions, serranos, and you would just mix them together as is. It's a fresh salsa. Salsa tatemada is going to have a little bit of charring and blistering. So it's going to have that slight bitter taste and those notes that you're going to get from the charring here. The reason that I'm doing this first, so I could put my chicken in first and get the grill marks on there. I want the chicken to be hot and fresh. So I'm going to go ahead and get the salsa ready first. And again, get that nice char mark. Now, with this grill pan, if you don't have an outdoor grill, very important here, and it is a little bit challenging in the sense of heat. So I want this just below smoking point. Smoking point is when an oil starts to smoke before it bursts into flame. Right? There's a few degrees difference in there. So I want to get it just below the smoking point to get that nice even char all the way around here. So to do that, I'm going to pay attention to the pan and make sure a decent amount of smoke isn't coming out. If a little bit of smoke is coming out, that's okay. As we're talking about different oils to use here, avocado has a pretty high smoking point. Butter has a lower smoking point, meaning it starts to smoke earlier. So I'm finding in between here, I'm going to use an olive oil and start getting a little bit of char on these items here. Okay, so you can see some of the steam coming up around the side, but that isn't smoke. That's just liquid from these vegetables here. One thing that I do want to talk about, and I'm going to sidetrack here. So I'm going to debunk a myth. I'm going to make life confusing and go against everything that mom and grandma has said growing up. So we have our marinated chicken here. That's that chili, that ancho powder, that It has a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder, salt, pepper, oil, and I'm just letting it marinate. So I only let it marinate for a few hours. Here's the myth. Marinating proteins, especially chicken and beef, doesn't tenderize it. I know, mind blowing, but it does create a little bit of flavor. So you don't, there was a test done that I was just researching again yesterday. So if you marinate something, they marinated chicken breast in something very highly acidic, right? A marinade is oil and acid. Marinated it for 18 hours and it only penetrated 3 millimeters of the meat after 18 hours. So the whole interior of the meat wasn't very flavorful. It wasn't that much different. So how do you keep your chicken juicy and tender? We're really going to focus on the cooking here and making sure it gets to 165, but not 165 degrees Fahrenheit, but not too far over. Now, acid will begin to break stuff down. We do know that, but it is not going to fully permeate the density of protein. Okay, so I'm starting to get some grill marks on these items, so I'm going to go ahead and turn them and allow that char to come out. Another way that you can do this is you can throw it in the oven in a broiler, or if you have a gas stove, you can put it directly over. The flame and get a beautiful charring and blistering. That is my favorite method. Unfortunately, I do have an electric stove, but that's okay. I can work with that. Okay, so what I'm looking for here is as much char as possible. So you can see I have a little bit of grill marks going, so I'm going to go ahead and keep turning it and rotating it, making sure that we get those nice grill marks. We want that char to come through. We want that little bit of bitterness, that char, that smokiness to come in the background. That's the benefit of grilling, right? So I'm going to keep turning it and make sure I'm getting those char marks. And I won't go, today I'm not going to go as far as I would normally, because I like a really dark, even char. I like that flavor to permeate throughout the entire dish. Today I'm just going to start by getting a little bit of a char mark, throw it over into this blender, this blender that I have, and then we can focus on the chicken and talk about the plating. Beautiful. Awesome. Another trick that you can do here, so onions, if anybody's ever watched Shark, ogres and onions have layers, right? When I'm looking at this, you can see there's multiple layers. If you so decide to help speed up the process, you can take out these individual layers, cut it into quarters, and that will get you more of a char all the way around as well. But for the sake of space in the pan, I'm going to go ahead and keep the onion full here and try and get every side possible. Again, so this is, I'm not trying to fully cook it all the way through. The technique here is I just want that char. I want that little bit of flavor in the salsa here. Difference between a salsa fresca and a salsa tatemada, a roasted salsa here. Beautiful. So you can see a little bit of smoke coming up here. This isn't steam. It's got a more dense color, and I can smell it, right? One of the beauties of cooking is that you get to use all of your senses to tell when it's done. Right now, I can smell the heat off of that serrano pepper. I can smell the acidity from the onion, a little bit of sweetness from those tomatoes roasting. Now, as the smoke's coming up, I don't want to burn it, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my heat down a little bit. Again, what I can do is I can take this and put it in the oven. By putting it in the oven here, I can get a more even blistering, but I will need to turn it a little bit more, so I'll have to keep opening the oven here. Beautiful. Cool. All right, again, for the sake of time, so what we want is this charring that we have on the serrano, this blistering right here. I want that all the way around typically. But again, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just get a little bit of charring to get some of that flavor. But when you're doing it at home, I recommend going just a little bit longer on here. Awesome. So you can see I have this little bit of charring. Again, the smell, I can smell this earthiness, this acidity, this tomato, the sweetness here. Awesome. So I have everything charred and starting to blister here. I'm going to move the pan from heat. You can see how it's smoking right here. Okay, so I needed to cool down just a little bit before I start adding the chicken. And that high heat is going to end up creating too dark of a, it's called a quadrillage, which I'll show you before the chicken is cooked. And I need it to cook evenly. Another difficulty of cooking on the grill when you are, so I'm going to take a step back. So I have my tomatoes, onions, and serrano in here. I'm going to add the lime juice. I'm going to add a decent bunch of cilantro here. And then I'm going to add a pinch of salt and pepper. Okay, awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend this. So if your volume is all the way up, I recommend turning it down, as this will be just a tad loud, okay, for about 30 seconds. Ready? Everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, so let me go ahead and pull this blender over. So what you can see here is you can see this deeper red. You can see this deeper red salsa that's going to be deeper than a salsa fresca. Okay. So what's happening here is that char is coming in, that flavor is starting to come in. So we're getting that deeper red, that caramelization, that little bit of sweetness. So this is the texture that I have right now, which is a little bit chunky and it's a little bit loose and watery. I'm going to go ahead and blend it just a little bit longer. I'd like to have it a little bit more smooth and held together here. So give me another 10 seconds and then we'll start on the chicken. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over as soon as I can so that you can see everything. My apologies. So I have 2 settings on this blender. It's a relatively cheap Hamilton Beach blender. This is what I love. This is my go-to for all sauces and purees here. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. Ready in 1, 2, 3.
Hey, Chef Dan.
Yes.
So we had a question in the comments. Deborah asked, why add salt since tomatoes have high sodium content?
Sorry, I missed that again.
Deborah asked, why add salt since tomatoes have high sodium content?
Some tomatoes have high sodium content, yes, but they do lean towards the sweeter side, especially with the caramelization here of the charring. And then salt is not to make things salty. Okay, and that's kind of a revolutionary cooking thing here. Salt is not always to make things salty. You have 5 main tastes here. So it's going to be, you can taste saltiness, sweetness, you can taste acidity, bitterness, and umami. Those are the 5 flavors that you can taste on your tongue in different areas. Salt, what that does, as soon as it's near the tip of your tongue here, not on the tip, that's where the sweetness is, but near the tip, saltiness gets your mouth salivating. Okay, so all of which allows the food to wash over and create receptors. That's why you add salt to sweet things. You add salt to chocolate chip cookies. You add salt to sweetbreads. It's not to make it salty. It's to allow it to get your mouth salivating so you can taste the flavors more prominently. Great question. All right, so I blended it a little bit more. All right, you can see that I have this consistency, that's a little bit more loose, a little bit more smooth, less chunky. And now I have this charred salsa. It's gonna have a little bit of sweetness, the acidity from the tomatoes, a little bit of spice and earthiness from the serrano, and that bright citrusy from the tomato, onion, and then the cilantro that's been added in here. So we're gonna go ahead and set that aside. That is going to be our topping. Again, I recommend charring it just a little bit longer to get a little bit more of that bitterness, but it's up to you. Practice it, play with it, do it multiple times, and that way you can begin to see what flavor profile you like. All right, so a couple things with cast iron. So what I love about using cast iron is that I can throw it right in the oven. So if you have a really thick piece of chicken, what you can do, this is what I was going to talk about a little bit earlier, is if you have a really thick piece of chicken, you can start to get your quadrillage. Those are those grill marks, those X's that you'll see on the outside. And if your chicken isn't finished, you can go ahead and throw it in the oven. Okay, when you are using, I'm gonna go ahead and get this started. When you are using a grill outside, you have 2 different heats that you use. You have your low side and your hot side. So you can get the grill marks, the quadrillage, on the hot side and then move it over to the low side. But since we have a grill pan, we're doing it indoors, we don't have anywhere else to move this to finish cooking it. So we can turn it down to low after we get our grill marks and then throw it in the oven to get up to that safe temperature. So first thing I'm going to do is lay it on here just about at a 45-degree angle. All right. Couple things you'll notice here. So this is 1 chicken breast. Or instead of taking time and having to put it in the oven to finish it cooking, the other solution, so that I don't burn in the pan, is to make it a little bit more thin. So by the time the outside cooks, the inside is going to cook to the safe temperature as well. Very important here. With these tongs, before I use them to touch the cooked chicken, I need to make sure I rinse it. I just touched raw chicken with this. And for chicken to be safe to eat, we have to get up to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? But this has raw chicken on it. So I can use this during the cooking process, but towards the end, I'm going to wash it, rinse it, so that I can still keep using it, if that makes sense. Awesome. So now I'm going to pay attention to the smoking point. I can see some of the steam coming off that marinade, right? That flavoring, that ancho and lime here is all around the outside. And there's a little bit of honey in this recipe if you looked at it earlier. What is dangerous about using honey in grilling or cooking? It's sugars, and sugars burn fast. So I really have to pay attention to the cooking here because it's going to cook the outside a little bit faster because sugars tend to burn and they cook a little bit sooner than everything else. I have my heat here. Going to take a peek, just lift the side up, see if I'm getting those grill marks. Awesome, not quite yet. Quadrillage, okay. Those are those X's that you see on your steaks and your chicken when you're doing grilling. A fancy, the one that is most preferred, most appealing to the eye is 45-degree angles. Those create diamonds, not perfect squares, right, that are turned 90 degrees. So diamonds have a little bit less of a slope. The way to do that is math. And I know math isn't always our friend, but it does make a really appealing grilled dish at this point. So I'm going to start with this, best way to describe it in the pan. This is 0, okay? This is 90 degrees. So I'm going to start at the 45 degrees here, halfway, and then I'm going to turn it to 0. Okay, 45 degrees and 0 are going to be my turns as opposed to 90 degrees and then back to 0. That makes sense. So that helps us create a more beautiful diamond and less of a square. Right now on this first side, I want a little bit higher heat. Again, because I'm aiming for those, I'm aiming to get the grill marks, and then I'll turn it down on the second side to be able to get, to be able to finish cooking the chicken all the way through. All right. While that's going, so today we're going to do a rice dish. You can use this for whatever you want. What I love and highly encourage is thinking about, okay, I have honey, chili, lime. What's this going to pair with? This is a great taco dish, right? Great idea to use this in tacos. You can throw some pickled onions, some lettuce, some cheese on top of there, some tomatoes. Today we're going to make a dish with some grilled chicken on top, this honey lime grilled chicken, some cilantro, and salsa is going to be our finished product here. All right, so everyone can see the 45-degree angle in the pan, okay? Next step is to turn it vertical, okay? So now I'm going to turn it down to 0 and see if you can get some pretty marks there. Now, here I have the marinade, and I talked about marinating. It doesn't actually tenderize the meat the way that we think it does. That's kind of been debunked over the past few years here. This marinade is a great finishing sauce for your dish, but I can't use this marinade. Why? Because I had raw chicken in it, right? And raw chicken is salmonella. So if you're going to use the rest of the marinade and drizzle your finished dish, make sure that you are not marinating chicken in it ahead of time.
Hey, Chef Dan, we have a question for one of the viewers. They're just saying that their chicken was a little bit too thick. How long should that they leave it in the oven for?
Great question.
And what temperature?
Great question. So I tend to do chicken at a little bit lower, but it will take more time. So you can do it at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. You can do it at 350, but that has potential to dry out. And this is the unfortunate answer with cooking. It's so subjective along the way. I don't have a time for you until it's done. So you're going to have to check it and consistently check it with a thermometer here, which is what we're going to do with this chicken. Great question. So 300 degrees until it reaches 165. Okay, so I'm going to give it a flip. Good. You can see that nice char mark coming in here. So you can see the angles. And I'll show you, as soon as I can bring it over, I'll show you that quadrillage here.
And Chef, quick question. Is it necessary to have grill marks on both sides or just the side that you present? Is one of the questions.
Great question. It is not necessary to have it on both sides. You do want your presentation side to look pretty. I recommend still doing both sides because what will happen is you will, then you have two chances to find which side's the pretty side, right? If you only do one side and screw it up, you have less of a chance of making it work. I'm going to open a window real quick. So you can see this pan smoking, but that's what I want for these colors. Yes, you had a question?
Yes, Chef Dan. Someone asked if they missed what was in a marinade. Can you reiterate what you marinated the chicken with?
Yes, so that will be the recipe that you can find along with this demo. The marinade is a little bit of oil, lime juice, a little bit of honey. Those are going to be your main three ingredients. And then we use chili powder, salt, and pepper in here. All right, so I moved it off of heat based on how high it's going right now. Good, and I'm going to check that underside so you can see that char mark, which is looking good. I want to turn that heat down. I need to make sure that that chicken is getting to that 165 degrees. Awesome. This one's a little bit more thin, so I'm going to go ahead and move that one to the side and temp it. All right, before we get going with that, I'm going to throw it back in the pan real quick and watch these colors. Awesome. Now I can move it over to the side here. Cool. All right. So, how do I know when the chicken's ready? Like you were asking before, it's not always a time thing. It depends on the size and the heat you're cooking it at. I am going to take a thermometer and I'm going to put it in the thickest part here. Make sure that we're hitting that 165. Awesome. Okay, so this thin piece is hitting 164.2, 0.7. Awesome. And so it's getting up to that 165. There's something called carryover temperature, which you do with steaks. So if you want it medium rare, you're going to cook it to rare. It's going to go up anywhere from 3 to 5 degrees afterwards. So when you immediately pull it off, you get it up to 165. We're going to, or 163. It's going to get up to that 165 there, letting it rest. All right, so looking at this bigger piece here, this one is only sitting at 130, so it is not safe to eat. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that back into the pan and let it finish cooking. Or if I decided I like the quadrilages here and it's done cooking, I don't want to burn the outside and make it dry, I'm gonna throw it in the oven until it reaches that 165.
Hey, Chef, is a laser thermometer work the same way, or do you need one that pokes in the middle?
Great question. Yes and no. I think the thing that we forget about laser thermometers is that it is not 100% precise in the sense that it will, if I'm doing it in the pan here, it has all of its ambient heat around it. Like I can feel this very, very hot. So if you're temping this, you're also getting that ambient heat around the chicken. Okay, so you're not just getting the chicken, and that's only doing the surface, right? It's not going to go into the center of the meat. The sensor in these thermometers is going to be closer to here within the first ½ inch, right? So getting that sensor into the meat is going to have a more accurate reading, especially with the ambient heat and everything going around. Awesome. All right, so I'm gonna let this guy keep cooking. I'm gonna leave it on low and slow, turn off the heat on the back burners. We are gonna go ahead and compose our dish. So I've let it rest a little bit, let the juices settle so they don't all run out on the cutting board. You can see some of the juices coming out here around the plate. Get a nice clean cutting board here. Beautiful. So it's marinated in that honey, lime, ancho, chili flavoring is what we're looking at.
And Chef,
so here,
I'm sorry, one more quick question. One of the questions was, is American chili powder different from other countries, other chili powders? And then are you using American chili powder? Thank you. So
I'm not using American chili powder. I'm using ancho chilies that I've ground up myself into a powder. So American chili powder, I don't have a direct answer on that. You'd have to read the back to see what chilies it is, right? There are many different types of chilies, most of them coming from Central America. So depending on your flavor profile, ancho chili is a little bit more earthy, which is going to pair with this serrano. And it has a very strong smokiness, which is going to go really well with the grilling here. So that's why I've chosen the ancho chili, because it pairs well with a complete dish. Anytime you get a mixed blend of spices, you need to read the ingredients to know what type of chilies you're using and figure out what flavor profile you're going for there. Great question. All right. So you can see it a little bit better on this one, but this is that quadrillage I was talking about. Here's going to be that perfect quadrillage. So again, you can see this diamond here, 45-degree angles as opposed to those big squares. There was a high point that missed the grill mark, so you don't get to see it all the way up, which would be ideal here. But that diamond is what you're looking for with those sear marks. Okay. So chicken's cooked, ready to go. Going to go ahead and cut it into strips here.
And chef, while you're actually cooking the chicken, are you able to use a lid on the pan to help circulate heat faster?
You can definitely do that. That will help get the interior higher. But you do want to make sure you get those char marks before you start with the lid there. And I don't personally have a lid for this. I could have put some foil over it to help speed up the process. But when the chicken is this thin, I don't really need to. The only reason that you would throw a lid on something is you don't want it to burn. Right, you can see this side starting to get a little bit more charred, but it's still within the safe range here. It's not fully burnt. But yeah, great question. You could definitely throw a lid on it to speed up the process. Okay, so here we have the chicken ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and lay it on top of the rice here. Beautiful. The reason that I don't just have the rice on the side is I want a little bit of height. Okay, we eat with our eyes first, so we want to make it look appealing. So a couple things with this. So I have the rice here for height. I have a beautiful grilled chicken here, nice golden brown coloring, not too many char marks. And I want to get that height on here. This is the star of the dish. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple spoonfuls of the salsa and just kind of drizzle it around the outside to fill that white space. And then over the top of the chicken and the rice.
Now, is there a good way to determine when the chicken's finished if you don't have a thermometer?
Yes. Typically, the juices are going to run clear. But since we're marinating it, that's going to affect the color of the juices, so it'll be a little bit more difficult. I will cut open this other chicken afterwards and then show you a photo. Okay, so this salsa has not been chilled, right? So something to think about. That's going to change the texture. So right now it is super runny, and it's not sticking and coating in little heaps, which would be a little bit more ideal for presentation here. But we have what we have. So I recommend putting this, making this the day before and putting it in the fridge overnight. Finished product here. Last little bit, I'm going to find some pretty cilantro leaves and lay them on top of the chicken. And then a little bit around that plate. Color, color, color. It needs to be appealing to our eyes before it's appealing to our mouth. If it looks pretty, we're more likely to enjoy it and want to eat it. Do the one up top on the chicken. Okay. Okay. And now make sure I have a clean plate. And now we have a beautiful finished chicken dish. It's very appealing. You have that red, that white, that chicken, that little bit of green. And then it has that lovely accent of flavor. That rice is going to be a little bit sweet. We're going to get the salty and char from the chicken, and we're going to get that acid, sweetness, and earthiness from the salsa for a honey ancho chili lime grilled chicken. Awesome. So that is the plate. Again, I would recommend chilling the salsa and doing the tatemada just a little bit longer here. So to answer the previous question, right, so you can see the quadrillage on top of here. You can see those diamond patterns starting. If you don't have a thermometer, everyone can see into the chicken here. Okay, no pink, lots of white, clear juices. If I squeeze it, I don't think you guys can see that. There's a little bit of juices coming out that is clear. And so that's what we need to see here. I highly, highly, highly recommend getting a thermometer. It will be the most accurate and it will be very, very safe.
And now, chef, what kind of rice were you using? Was it just regular white rice or jasmine?
Yeah, so I used a regular long grain white rice. I did not use jasmine or basmati, just a medium to long grain white rice there. But again, finished product here. You can always add more salsa. Again, you want that pop of green, that color. This is something that you can order at a restaurant. You have that white rice down underneath, beautiful coloring, golden brown, green, white, red. It needs to be very appealing for the eyes here. And this is how I would plate it. But this isn't the only way you can plate it, right? You can take this and put it in tacos, burritos. You can chill this and save it later. There are many, many options, but it is lending itself towards a Central American style cuisine based on the spices, the ancho chili, the lime, that little bit of honey and cilantro and salsa. So we'll leave that right there. And then, awesome, great questions along the way. Does anyone else have any other questions on the dish?
And then one of the questions was just asking if they could use chili flakes.
Totally. You can use chili flakes. They will fall off a little bit quicker, and they're likely to burn on the outside. If you have a powder, it's not going to have as strong of a flavor. If you were to just toast your chili flakes so they would fall off of the chicken and start grilling, it's going to make a very potent smell there. Great question.
Well, it looks like a few people are going to be making it later on today. And now the jasmine or the white rice, you didn't add anything to it. It was just regular white rice.
Yep, just cooked in a pot, covered until it was nice and fluffy. Used a simple 2-to-1, so 2 parts water to 1 part rice. Simmered it low, covered for 20 minutes, removed it from heat, and then left the lid on for 5 minutes. Then afterwards, I removed it, fluffed it with a fork, and then I formed it into that square rectangle on the plate. Great question.
Okay. And now the salsa, can it be frozen?
It can be frozen, yes. It is better fresh. It's better if you keep it in the fridge and eat it in the next 3 days, but that's most food, right? You can freeze on anything, but it's going to take away a little bit of the flavor profile there. The longer it does sit in the fridge though, right? The refrigerator and freezers are retardants. They basically slow the cooking process, the marinating process, anything in there. Fridge a little bit, and then freezer a lot, like halts it, stops it. So leaving it in the fridge, it will get a little bit more spicy as the spices start to permeate throughout the entire salsa. But you can freeze it. I don't have a definitive date. That is up to you to smell it, check it, and make sure it's safe. But it should be good in the freezer for, I would say, at least 3 weeks, and then you can move it to the fridge and use that. Great question.
Would you recommend the salsa going with anything else? Like, can you have it with chips, or is it too strong of a flavor?
Yes, I almost always have the salsa in my fridge. I roast them, I broil it in the oven. It's just a little bit quicker, a little bit more clean. I can get a more even toasting there. Blend it up, and then I'll keep it in the fridge for the week. I'll eat it with chips and salsa. I'll eat it with quesadillas, burritos, tacos, and put it on any Latino style dish that I'm making.
Well, it looks amazing. I can't wait to try it myself, and it looks like a lot of the viewers are going to be doing it a little bit later on. So thank you very much, Chef Dan. That was a great presentation.